very much, Lubo. And if I can say you and Ifan and the others in the team, you've done an absolutely terrific job, Joran. So thank you very much indeed. I'd like to begin by introducing what we're going to do. We're going to look, first of all, at dyslexia, then at autism, or ASD, autism spectrum disorder, and then at ADHD, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, in that order. Within each of these sections, we're going to have a quick look at what they are. We're going to have a look at the challenges we face, and we're going to have a look at some remedial strategies. So we've got 20 minutes for each. To begin with, can I ask you all to take some pieces of paper? And on your piece of paper, I would like you to divide the piece of paper into something like 8 sections. So fold it into 2 and then fold that into 4 and tear it up. So create 8 small cards out of a sheet of paper, please. Thank you. Okay. Once you have done that, or while you're doing that, I want you to use each piece of paper. So I'm going to just show you a business card that represents one of these pieces of paper. And I'd like you to write one thing on it. One thing and only one thing. And then on another of your pieces of paper, write another thing. And on another of your pieces of paper, write one more thing. So at the end of this little exercise, you've written 8 things, 1 on each piece of paper. Okay? So you've torn your paper into 8 sections, and on each section, you write one thing. The things I would like you to write are this. I would like you to write on each piece of paper something that you associate with dyslexia. So it could be slow reading speed, or you read words backwards, or something like that. So on each piece of paper, I would like you to write one thing you associate with dyslexia. By the end of this, you should have 8 things you associate with dyslexia. Thank you very much. I'm just going to give you about 1 minute to do this. So again, just a little more time, but don't worry if you don't fill all of the pieces of paper. That's not a huge problem.
Excuse me, I have a question. If I understood well, we have to write down 8 characteristics of dyslexia.
Yes.
Am I right?
Yes.
Okay, thank you, thank you.
Okay, just take a few seconds to finish off. You can add as we go along. You don't have to have all eight pieces of paper filled. So what I would now like to do, I'd like you to put them aside and we'll come back to them later. But what I'd like to do is just explain very quickly what dyslexia is. Dyslexia is a neurological condition. This is the first thing we need to understand about it. It's not about reading slowly. It's not about language. It's a neurological condition. It certainly is not a visual condition, okay? So there's something which people often mistake for dyslexia. And I'm going to share my screen with you in a second. And I'm going to show you something. So, Lubo, you've allowed me to share screen, have you? Wonderful. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you an image. If I can share my screen with you. Here we go, share. Wonderful. Can you all see this image? Now, I hope you can. This image is what we call an optical illusion. This image represents what a lot of people think dyslexia is, but in fact, it's not dyslexia. This image represents something we call Irlen syndrome. So where you have something that's still, but there's movement. I hope you can all see that. Okay. Irlen syndrome is not dyslexia. Dyslexia is not a visual processing problem. Dyslexia is a neurological condition, and it's because of how the brain is built. Okay, so very, very quickly, there's a number of aspects to the different building of the dyslexic brain. One of my favorite explanations is that your brain is constructed of brain cells. Obviously, your brain is constructed of brain cells, but the shape of the brain cells are constructed almost entirely of something called essential fatty acids. And therefore, the shape of the brain cell is governed by the cell wall, which is made up of essential fatty acids. Now, in the dyslexic brain, those cell walls, they have a different balance of essential fatty acids from the neurotypical brain cell. So to illustrate this, what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask you to split into two groups, okay? I would like you to split into men and women. So hopefully there are some men here and hopefully there are some women here. So the men, what I would like you to do is take a piece of paper and a pen and draw a brain. Not yet, not yet. And women, what I would like you to do is take a piece of paper and a pen and draw a brain. So both groups, men and women, are going to take a piece of paper and a pen and you're going to draw a brain. But here is the real instruction. Men, you are going to be cubists about this. So the brain that you draw has to be constructed like a Lego brain or a Minecraft brain of squares. And these squares have to be joined together. So you have to build your brain out of squares. So the brain that you draw will be made up of lots and lots of squares. Women, the brain that you draw will be made up of lots and lots of triangles. Okay? So when you draw your brain, women, this sounds terrible, women, when you draw your brain. Ladies, when you draw your brain, what I would like you to do is construct your drawing almost like a jigsaw puzzle out of triangles. Gentlemen, when you draw your brain, I would like you to construct your brain drawing like a jigsaw puzzle out of triangles. Okay? Thank you very much. I'll give you 2 minutes to draw your brains. Thank you. Okay, about 1 more minute left to draw your brains. And for those of you who have finished drawing your brains earlier, maybe you're finishing off your dyslexia cards that we started a little bit earlier on. Okay, Yubo, I'd like you to invite people here as the workshop facilitator. I'd like you to invite certain people to share their drawings of the brains with the group. So we'll see what your drawings look like. Svetlana, excellent. Can we see yours?
Hello.
Hello. Can we hold it a bit closer? Ah, beautiful. A little bit further up, please.
Okay.
Ah, lovely, lovely. That looks almost exactly like my brain, in fact.
Hey. That's it.
Brilliant. Ifan, can you share your brain with us? Yeah. You've gone the full Lego, I see. Yubo, can I see your brain? Yeah, exactly. Yeah, yeah. Oh my God. Melissa, is it Melissa? Let's have a look at this. Beautiful. Oh, that's nice. That actually looks like a brain. Ivana, I like it. Oh God, yeah, I like yours. Yeah, yeah. Yelena, have you got a brain you'd like to show us? Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Any other men who'd like to show us a brain? Let's have a look. Pavel, do you have a brain that you can show us? Beautiful, lovely. Excellent. What we've done is, what you've effectively done is you've drawn the differences between a dyslexic brain and a neurotypical brain. When the dyslexic brain is constructed with slightly different shaped brain cells from the neurotypical brain, the brain structure looks different. Now, the brain has effectively, it has the capacity to communicate with itself internally. These communications can be represented by the corners of your squares or the corners of your triangles. Those brains that have been drawn with squares, they will communicate in lateral lineal fashions. The brains that have been drawn with triangles will communicate in different directions. This is a very good sort of analogy. In fact, it's hardly even an analogy. It's almost an exact explanation of how the dyslexic brain processes information differently from the neurotypical brain. Where the neurotypical brain is constructed of square brain cells, as it were, the processing will be in a linear fashion. Where the dyslexic brain is constructed of triangular brain cells, the processing will be in different directions. This means that people with dyslexia process information differently. This is what dyslexia is. It is a non-linear processing of information. What it means is people with dyslexia will have a different view of things like time, a different view of things like space, a different view of things like organization. And if you as teachers want to keep people with dyslexia on board in a traditional classroom, you have to make your instructions specific and very clear and step by step. If you don't, what you can do is you can create a more interactive, more creative classroom. And that interactivity and creativity allows the dyslexic brain to flourish. Now, why is this important? Well, I'm going to show you something. This is, I think, extremely important indeed. What I'm going to do is I'm going to share in the chat box a link. I've created a game for you. So if you can all access and open this link, it's a card matching game. So you'll have to match one card with another. And you can do this on your computer or on your mobile phone or anything. So I've accessed this on Quizlet, if you know the Quizlet app. You don't have to take any notice of the timer because there is a timer. Take no notice of the timer. The most important thing is looking at the facts and seeing whether you can match one fact with another fact, the first half of a sentence with the second half of a sentence. I'll give you about 2 minutes to complete this, if you can access it. Just going to ask, can everybody access this? Is everybody having trouble accessing it? Great, you can all see it. If anyone's having trouble, please speak up. Okay, have you all matched your cards? What I'd like you to do, now you've matched your cards, I'd like you just to take brilliant, thank you very much, Vejna, is it? Thank you very much. I'd like you to just make a note of any facts in there that were surprising or shocking, because this is the kind of thing that I'm going to ask, not in this workshop, but afterwards, I'm going to ask us all to reflect on. You can go back to this link again and again, and there are, I think I made about 30 different facts. So you can play that game again and again, and you'll find different facts coming through, and you can match one with the other. And you will find some really shocking things. Something like 75% of parents believe that their children are not being properly accommodated for. Round about half of children try to skip school because of their dyslexia. Round about half of children drop out of school because of their dyslexia. These facts are really, really important to us. Why are they important to us? Well, one of the reasons is that one of the challenges is the attitudes that people have towards dyslexia. Teachers have attitudes that they're often scared of dyslexia. Sometimes in certain cultures, children are ashamed if they find out they're dyslexic. When I found out I was dyslexic, and I come from Britain, I was ashamed. It's one of these very classic, very natural responses. To discover the kinds of attitudes that people really have, I'm going to look at everybody in this chat room and suggest that every single one of you is positive about dyslexia, because if you're not, you wouldn't be here. Well, let's see how positive your attitudes to dyslexia really are. This is very, very cruel of me, okay? Go back to the cards that you wrote out at the beginning of the session. I asked you to write 8 cards, and I'm going to make you do something which you're going to hate me for. I'm going to ask you to divide the desk in front of you into positive and negative. There is no in between. There is only positive and negative. I'm going to be black and white about this. All of those cards that could appear on the positive side of the desk, put them on the positive side. All of the cards that could appear on the negative side of the desk, put them on the negative side. So things like slow reading, can't read, can't spell, these would go on the negative side of the desk. Just take about 30 seconds to do that now. Okay, can I just ask everybody to write into the chat box, if they can, how many positives they had and how many negatives they had? Yeah. 716253. This is very, very common. Yeah, all negative. -62, yeah. all negative. 2 to 3, that's all right. It's nearly 50%. All negative. Seven negative, 1 positive. Yeah, this happens again and again and again. What I'd like you to do, I would like you, I'm not going to read them now, but I would like you to actually, oh, 3 positive, 1 negative, 3 negative, that's good. 1 positive, 4 negatives. I would like you to write them into the chat box, because that act of writing down my attitude has been generally negative or whatever is quite a nice wake-up call for all of us. We all look at dyslexia as deficits, as negatives, as problems, as things people cannot do. And part of the reason for that is the name we give it. Dyslexia, dyspraxia, dysgraphia, dysphasia, dysnomia, etc., 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 dyscalculia. So we name it with the dys words. It's very, very interesting to see that we actually find that even those of us who are at our most positive, we still tend towards a negative view of dyslexia. Lenovo, you've got 3-3. That's very good indeed. I'm quite impressed. Okay, we've done about 20 minutes. Before we go to questions, I'm just going to give you 3 tips. 3 tips for making what you present, not the classroom, but making the information you present dyslexia friendly. Tip number 1, reduce the amount of text that you use. Very, very simple. Reduce the amount of text that you use. And that includes, don't ask people with dyslexia to copy from a whiteboard onto a piece of paper, or to copy from a book onto a piece of paper. Don't ask people with dyslexia to do that, because there are problems such as working memory problems, which make that very difficult. Tip number 2, where you can, present information infographically. If anyone knows my LinkedIn profile, you'll see that I'm absolutely throwing infographics at the LinkedIn profile. Infographics are the ways that people with dyslexia see, because they can see structures, they see how everything fits together, there's colors, and there's not that much text. And tip number 3, where you use text, make sure your text is sans serif. That is, things like Arial, Helvetica, Verdana, Lilowadi, Calibri. So not Times New Roman. That's a bad one. Serif is the twiddly stuff on the writing. So sans serif. Also, make sure that it is at least 12 point, although some fonts are smaller than others. And where you can, space the letters out a little bit. So when you have, if you're on Microsoft Word, there's a fonts option, and in fonts, go into advanced, and then it says increase letter spacing by. I usually increase my letter spacing by 0.5 or 1, and it makes the letters easier to read, makes the words easier to read. So reduce the amount of text, increase the amount of graphic content, and where you use text, make sure it's sans serif and spaced out a little bit more than you normally would do. Thank you very much. Are there any questions? Oh, I frightened you all to death.
Okay, I suggest that, okay, if anyone has a question, now is the time, or maybe, anyway, we will be taking a short break, 5 minutes. Maybe somebody wants to make a phone call or take just a break.